Okay, so today I thought I would show how to make a fun little voxel player character for yourself, and I've made a example level that you can follow along and do this one. So the first thing you need to do is navigate to .big bang and then scroll down to the latest tab and type in make a voxel here, and that'll pull it up. But you just search for this title, make a voxel player character, and then you're going to want to remix this game. You can use any art that you want for this as long as the art is set up sort of in the way I'm going to explain to you. But just to make things easy, I'm just going to make a remix of this little ghost character to use as ours because it has all the example frames that I'm going to want in it. So here I've gone to the same place and I've just searched up simple voxel player example, and I'll remix that one as well. Now, your character can be much more complex than this if you want to, but just so that I can have really simple animation frames, I just stuck with like a flat character. Okay, so all we're gonna do in our example here to make it a little different than the other ones is we're just gonna maybe make this look like a little cat thing or something. And I'm gonna go ahead and paste the funny little ears onto the other frames. Okay, so I just went and made that change so that you can see my little character now has ears. Now, as for the actual frames that I have here, the order of the frames doesn't matter, except that parts you want to loop have to be all together. So if your walking frames for your character sort of run animation is going to be 6 frames long, those 6 frames have to be all in a row because we're going to specify the frame range for it later. So right now what I have here, I'm going to use frame 1 as an idle. I'm going to use a mixture of frame 1, 2, 3, 4 as my run. Okay, so these 4 are going to loop. Then frame 5 is going to be my fall. Frame 6 is going to be my jump. Frame 7 is going to be my idle underwater. And then frame 7, 8, 9, and 10 are going to be my swimming movement. We'll just change the name of our character. Now we go back into the scene that I made. If you read the very first sign here that says read me, it says remix this game and then press stop to follow along. If you don't press stop, all the little characters will keep moving with you. This is what I mean. It's because all of those things in this example are other players, which means your movements are controlling all of them, which is pretty distracting while you're trying to catch them to work on them. So we're just going to stop the game to work on it because we've already remixed it. So the first thing we need is a voxel character, which has these frames. That's what we just made together. So if we just go into our voxel objects, it should be the most recent thing we made. So that's going to be the character that we're going to use. Okay. Next, we need a copy of the default player that has the skeletal object removed or hidden. We can use this one for now. And what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to just actually copy this and pull a copy of it out here to work on, so I leave the one in my tutorial scene alone in case I want to use it later. Next, I'm going to sort of move this along with me as I work on it, so we can look at this example here, but change our own object. So it says to change the voxel object component to the art that you've made, so this is what that means. If you click on an entity and it has a voxel object, there'll be this fuchsia colored component. If we open that up, the first thing in it is this voxel object that has the 3 little dots. Click that, then you can select from your own things to change it to the art that you made. The duck look has gone away and it now looks like this, so we can go to the next step. Now we need to add a copy of the script called voxel object animation controller and set the default animation ID to idle. Now there's 2 ways to do this. You could go up here to the script button and then hit open and type voxel object animation controller. You could click that. and then it'll add it at the bottom, and it says to set the default to idle, so I can go like this, and that's one way to do it. But since we already have an example in the scene that has the script, I can also just copy and paste it from there. So I'm going to show you that way as well. So in that case, let's remove this one I added, and instead let's go get it from here. So you go select it down here, then hit copy, then go to the new character that you want to paste it on, go back up to the script button here, but hit paste as new. And that did the same thing, right? So it's just sort of an easier way if you don't want to have to search for it. So let's take our little character along to the next step. Now we need to add a copy of voxel object animation for each movement type. The animation IDs are idle, running, jumping, falling, swimming idle, and swimming. So that's what I made sure I had voxel frames for on this character. On each one, you need to set the frame range for your animation and set it to loop. Set both numbers to the same if you only want to use one frame. So let's take a look at this pre-done character and see what it's got going on. Here's all those scripts that it just talked about. So it's adding, we needed 6 of these because we have 6 different animations that this could read from. And in each one, there's a start frame, an end frame, and an animation ID and setting for whether it loops or not. So we could either go like before, go up here, hit open and find that script and then set the settings like this, or we can just copy from one that's already set up right and working. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly copy and paste each of these scripts onto this character. Okay, so I've pasted 6 scripts on, but I'm just gonna make sure they're right. So I've got idle, running, falling, jumping, swimming idle, and swimming. And as to the frame range on these, I just made a duplicate of the original art, which means my frame ranges are the same as the original character was. But if you've made your own art, you're gonna have to change these. So just like I mentioned before when we looked at the art, I've got the start frame at 1, or for the idle, the start and end frame are both at 1, and then it's set to loop. That's because I just wanted to sit on this frame here looking just like this when it's idle, and that's set to frame 1. So if we look at one that has a set of frames, like running, in this one it's looping between 1 and 4. So you can see that it's just going to keep going over these frames again and again. It's going to play those while you're walking around, so while you're running. That's all you have to do for that step. And if I was to hit play on this game right now, this will be a little bit hard to see because there's a lot going on, but we can still kind of test it. So if you look over there at that character that I made, you can see that the art is changing as I move around. So that's right, it's reading the commands from the player movement script. If you're wondering where these words like idle and running and stuff are coming from, like what's broadcasting that information out for the animation to read, they're coming from a couple scripts. They're coming from this DBB character movement modal script. And if you go in here, you'll see that it has an idle animation, a running animation, a jumping animation. And these would all normally be played by that like skeletal character that has, you know, that the normal Big Bang player has. But in this case, I've removed that, and the animation scripts are just reading that this is the state they should be in and changing the frame of the voxel animation. So we have a character now that runs around and changes its animation based on our movement, but we want it to be the player for this scene. Like we want to replace our Big Bang character with this. And to do that, we need this actually to be a template. So to make it a template, we're going to do 2 things. First, we're going to rename it. So it's not just called player 1 because that could be confusing in the future. We'll call it a ghost. I don't know what it is, but we'll call it that. We'll call it ghost with ears. All right. And then we're going to copy that name because we're going to need it in a sec here. And we're just going to hit this new template button, then paste in our name and hit save. Now we have a copy of this character that we could pull out into any scene we wanted. If we go to our templates bar and go to mine, I can just pull out more copies of them. But we can also now set this to be the character for our scene. So to do that, we go up here to the three dots, and where it says player template, we're going to click here and we're going to click player ghost with ears and hit select. And now if I return to game, I am this funny little character. So yeah, pretty straightforward. It's not difficult to do this. Obviously, you don't need to keep all those other copies of this. What I would do is now bring this, I'd leave this scene alone in case I wanted to make more voxel player characters in the future. And I would just select this template in whatever game I wanted to use it in. If this has gotten you kind of excited about making your own custom players, there's also a scene where you can learn about more stuff that you can do the player. So if we just go over way over here, my other selves are gonna start dying. But there's a teleporter here at the end that will take you to this other special game called Player Template Examples and Tips. And this one has both information on how player templates work. It also has little buttons so you can try out lots of different player templates. It shows you different kinds of settings that you could change on a player template. If any of that kind of thing interests you, you can remix this other game and keep exploring custom players in Big Bang. Have fun.